Up next, it's an interview with two of America's A-10 pilots. For the next 25 minutes, you will hear from Captain Erik Salmonsen of the 76th Tactical Fighter Squadron and his colleague, Lieutenant John Marks. These two pilots established a military record this week by destroying 23 Iraqi tanks in just one day. Both fly the A-10 Thunderbolt II tank killer aircraft. It's commonly known in military circles as the Warthog. The footage you are about to see was made possible by a Persian Gulf media pool. These pools are created to supply television, print, and radio outlets with information from the war zone. A military escort accompanies all media pools in the military theaters of activity, and all material must be cleared by Allied military officials before it is made available for distribution. There are several dozen media pools now covering the war in the Middle East.
Hey, I'm Captain Erik Salmonsen from the 76th Tactical Fighter Squadron from England Air Force Base, Louisiana.
Okay, and Erik, would you spell your last name for us?
S-A-L-O-M-O-N-S-O-N.
And hometown?
Berthoud, Colorado.
Okay, and John, you, same thing?
Lieutenant John Marks, Carl, and I'm from Kansas City, Kansas, M-A-R-K-S.
Okay, and same unit?
Same unit.
Okay, pencils are concerned about your age.
I'm 28.
26.
And what rank are you, I'm sorry?
Lieutenant, first lieutenant.
Okay. Erik, let's start with you, and can you tell us what you did? We understand you killed a bunch of tanks.
Yes, sir, we sure did. We killed, all total in 3 missions, 23 tanks. First mission, we were CAS alert, launched out of here.
What's a CAS alert?
We were sitting alert for close air support.
Okay.
And launched out of here based on a report from a night squadron that they had discovered lots of Iraqi tanks on the move in the area of the Tawakkalna Republican Guard Division. And so we launched out of here. Didn't know quite what we were going to see, but we got up there about sunup, and sure enough, there's tanks all over. And we were up there with a OA-10 forward air controller, and another 2 ship of A-10s from Myrtle Beach, and we found them and sorted it all out, sectored the target area, and we were in and had tanks burning within 5 minutes.
Okay, what did you see when you came in there? Were they in a line? Were they side by side? What did they look like?
They were scattered off of a road, some of them in revetments, some of them in the open. You got it.
Oh, okay. And tell us what... About 2 seconds when we just...
Coming up at us.
It looks like they'd been trapped on the road, moving south, and the night guys had done what we normally do, attacked the leader in the trailer so that they're bottled up, and then they had just headed for the dirt on both sides of the road. The Iraqis have quite a few prepared revetments on a lot of the roads that are empty most of the time, and just for these kind of cases, and they had pulled off the road, some of them into the prepared revetments and some of them just into the open sand. And when they do that, they really churn up the sand, and we could see the tracks quite easily. And the tanks were quite hot, and our missiles worked very well on them, as well as the gun.
Could you see them visually moving around, or did you have to use your electronics?
Now, well, we could see them, but they weren't moving. They were in revetments or just sitting by themselves off the road.
Try that again. Could you see them with your eyes, or did you have to use your electronics?
We could see them visually with our eyes. They weren't moving. They were just sitting in revetments or off the side of the road in the open.
Okay, for each of you, take us up in the cockpit.
Electronics to kind of see those things anyway.
Okay.
One other question here. Did you follow their tracks? You said you could see their tracks pretty well. Is that how you...
Well, it was rather hazy in the target area, and the way we first pinpointed the tanks, the toughest part's getting the initial acquisition was you could see where they had left the road and left the churned up tank tracks, and right at the end of each of the tracks there was a tank.
So you followed the tracks to the tank?
Follow the tracks right to them.
For each of you, if you would, take us in the cockpit and take us through what you did and what you saw and how you fired and that sort of...
Okay. Well, we get in there, and of course we always want to have a visual on each other. So we got good mutual support amongst myself and Carl. And after we, okay, we're ready to go. I see a tank. I'm in, and Carl's covering me. I'm in to shoot the tank with an IR Maverick or the gun, usually with the Maverick first. I just spot the tank. It's nothing real cosmic. Got a reference in the cockpit, put it on there, go inside, lock it up, good lock, let her rip. Missiles off. I come off, looking around, looking for Carl, looking to see if there's any fire coming up at me, and watching to see how the missile impacts.
While he's down the chute, my job is to call him off if I see any AAA fire, any missiles fire at him, tell him to get flares coming out if I see missiles, and then as soon as he's off and has sight, then I'm in. He picked him up first, and then he hit the one tank. It was burning furiously, and then it made it easy for me to pick up the rest of the tanks, and I rolled in and fired. And we usually trade off shots, one after another.
Now you got 8. Did you get 4 each out of this?
Yep, we 4 apiece on all but the last sortie. 8 tanks first sortie, 8 tanks second sortie, and I had a bad Maverick last sortie, and we ended up only getting 7.
Did you shoot them all with Mavericks, or did you use your cannon too?
Negative. We had 17 with Maverick and 6 with the gun. And
those are all, we damaged quite a few more with the gun, about 10, but we only claimed the ones that actually were burning and exploding when we left as confirmed kills. That's how we, just kind of inner flight, we just decided that the only ones we were going to claim as kills for the BDA were actually ones that we saw on fire and burning.
Were you able to see any of the tank crews?
Nope, I didn't see any Iraqis running around.
We generally don't get near that close. Yeah.
What about the ground forces on the Allied side? Did you see any Americans or anybody else nearby on the ground? Were they?
Not real close, but there were friendlies up to within about 5 miles where we were employing.
Not necessarily on the first sortie, but on the second, third, they were quite a bit closer.
And that's a big part of our job. We've got to be really careful that we're clear of friendlies. We know exactly what kind of targets we're shooting, that they are known enemy, no friendlies around there. And once we find that out, we take care of it.
Did it look like the Allied, that the Iraqis were attacking or about to attack the Americans or friendlies?
Well, they were moving south. I don't know if they were moving into a position to engage friendlies or just moving into a new position or what.
Were you certain that the tanks were manned at the time?
They were hot in the IR imagery, and they had obviously been running recently, but as far as actually people in them, if they were smart, they probably pulled off the road and jumped out and ran as far away as they could.
None of them tried to drive away from you?
Negative.
We didn't see any movement at that point.
You've been looking for targets like these for a while, I would think.
Well, we've been looking for tanks since the war started. And yesterday we found a bunch. We had the right weapons, and we had the opportunity to take care of a bunch of them.
It was exactly what we had hoped, that the Army advance would do exactly what it did, and that's force the Republican Guards out of their prepared positions and out into the open on the roads, and that makes it our job a lot easier.
What's the difference between the kind of attacks you were doing before this and hitting tanks in the open like that?
Just a little bit easier in finding the targets when they're in revetments, when they're more in their little holes. It's more difficult to, first of all, tell if they are a tank, whether it's been killed, whether it's alive, and then the berms make it sometimes a little bit more difficult to get a good shot at them.
What are you thinking about while you're doing this?
I'm thinking about killing the enemy and then getting out of there.
Do you ever get any rush, any kind of sense of fear?
Well, if you heard my VTR tape, yeah, you'd know that things were happening.
The second sortie was quite a bit more intense. We were working under about a cloud deck, and what we couldn't get is quite as high as we normally like to do. Plus, it was raining a little lightly, so it was a little bit more intense. We were working with an F-18 Marine airfac, and those guys are great. And I think we put on an impressive show for them, and he seemed to be pretty pleased. And that was sortie. The second and third sorties were a little bit closer to Kuwait City, and they seem to be moving up that way. But they were tanks apparently on the side of the road, the hardball roads leading up there, apparently to stem and advance, and we found them. They were a little bit tougher targets because they weren't out in the open, but once the Marines found them, then we went in there.
What does it look like when a Maverick hits one of the tanks?
It's a huge explosion.
His first hit of the day, the turret blew completely off, and you can see it flipping through the air. And in fact, on my first IR Maverick shot, I mistakenly locked up a burning chunk of the tank that he had just shot. It was real hazy and it was tough to see, and I rolled in and looked in the Maverick video and saw a nice big hot spot, and as it turned out, it was actually a piece of his tank, but that was one of the few that missed during the day.
What kind of tanks were they? Were they different on the different missions also?
I don't know what type they were. All we can tell is it's a tank. Whether it's a T-55 or a T-72, we can't tell from our vantage point.
You can usually discern a turret and a barrel, but as far as what type, it's really impossible to tell.
Well, the 72s had kind of that flat turret, and the 55s sort of the frying
You have to get quite a bit closer than
we're that
to
close.
tell that kind of thing.
We're not doing it the right way.
Little celebration back here last evening when you finished?
Really didn't think much of it.
Yeah, we're just glad to be back. Another day closer to going home.
Are you taking fire from the ground when you are running missions nowadays? I know you were in the beginning.
Yes, we still are.
The second sortie was quite a bit what Fish was talking about, a little bit of the excitement, and I probably was a little bit more of that in my voice too. On my, we had just finished leaving about I think 7 burning. We moved up the road about 4 miles, just because we don't like to stay in the same target area for too long. Just hair starts standing up on your neck, and you want to just move on. So we moved about 4 miles up the road, found a note, another at least 10 in revetments on both sides of the road, and I rolled in and shot one with a Maverick, which blew up immediately. And as I pulled off, looked back, and the sky, there must have been a couple of gun pits right at that particular spot in the road, because they just completely opened up on me, and I had puffs at and above my altitude all around. I started jinking, and Fish was right in behind me.
Rolling in with a gun, I was just about ready to squeeze.
And I started just yelling on the radio, "Fish, come off, heavy flak." And so we came off and decided that we'd had enough for the day.
We had enough fun that time, so we came on back.
Have you done anything for encores?
We don't. We a lot of sometimes in combat you kind of revert to. Fish and I have flown together quite a bit, and we work usually as a great team, because we can just tell what each other are thinking, and it helps us be a lot more effective, because you don't have to worry about. I know what Fish is thinking. He knows what I'm thinking, but.
What does he call you? You call him Fish.
Karl Marx.
Karl Marx.
Bad joke that they tagged me with the first day I was in the squadron, so I didn't have a chance. Fish, of course, his last name. He had no hope.
Spelled with a K?
With a K, of course.
But that's not part of your name.
No.
Get older, you'd be Groucho.
Well, I passed up Groucho. I don't know how I missed out on that.
What have you done for an encore? Did you do anything today? Are you on patrol, or is this a day to relax and kick back?
Well, I can't really say ever really relax here in the sod, but it's a day we're not flying today. And hopefully tomorrow, a day without flying is like a day without sunshine around here, as far as I'm concerned. So.
Did you ever expect to get anything like 23 tanks in a single day? I mean, does that
everything just seemed
fit in the frame
together?
reference?
It wasn't. We didn't do anything that any other flight. We work really well together, but it was also just we were really fortunate that we were on CAS alert, which meant that we were going to get scrambled to all the best hot spots. That's kind of part of the CAS alert. They're not going to call you unless they need you, and when they found the tanks, they called us all 3 times. And so
you talked to the ground guys at all?
We're in contact with ground facts, forward air controllers up there, and they're moving right with the leading elements of the ground forces, and they are our eyes on the ground, and they make sure that we don't engage friendlies.
Do they offer any thoughts on the number of tanks?
They just say, keep going after it, guys. And that's the biggest compliment we can get, and anybody in the Air Force can get, is when a grunt on the ground goes out there and doesn't receive any fire from the enemy, because that means we've been doing our job for the past 40 days, or however long the air war has been going on.
Were you able to get any idea of the scope of the coalition advance as you were flying over?
You bet. Both the first day of the ground war as well as yesterday, you can see the friendlies rolling. And you can see a massive amount of vehicles and tracks through the dirt just heading north.
Hundreds, 50 yards, whatever.
And the first day we were up there watching the multiple rocket launchers impacting about 2 miles south where we were working, and just chewing up chunks of ground. Boom, 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 going north. And we called up, I said, hey, you guys are getting really close to you. Can we continue to work here? And the FAC came back and says, the commander says, keep after it.
So we
ground
basically
command.
worked out a couple of miles in front of the friendlies and just cleared the path for them whenever we find anything.
Do you see the Iraqis going back north too? Or just the friendlies driving north at them?
Most of the Iraqis we've seen are either been the ones that were moving south, we hit the tanks, or else they're dying in place. They're staying in their revetments.
Yeah.
Are you, that first sortie, was it in Iraq itself?
Yes.
First sortie.
How deep in?
Oh,
It's
80 miles?
Yeah, 80 miles. That's about right.
Okay. You were on the standby, the alert squadron. You were called up and went out and flew a mission, and then did you come back on that, or how did that sequence work out?
Okay, we flew out of here for our first mission. We went and landed at forward operating location. We rearmed, refueled, and then we got out of the jets to be on 30-minute alert once again. We got out, walked into the squadron, and immediately they said, "The Marines want you." And we had words, hopped in our jets. We were airborne 20 minutes later, en route to work with the Marines.
How about the third mission?
We landed back here, again, rearmed, refueled, and we talked to our wing operations, and they said, "Hey, what'd you guys see?" So we killed lots of tanks, worked with the Marines. They said, "Go do it again." And we went back up to the same general area and worked with the Marines again and killed more tanks.
Is that a common practice 3 times in a day? Is that 3 sorties? Would that be correct?
Yes,
to say that?
3 sorties
in a day and this kind of action?
Yes, fairly common. We like to try to swap out after 2 because
We have
at the end of
pilots available now.
at the end of 3 combat sorties, that's a full day.
How many hours was it for you, in fact?
It was about 7 hours flying time. We were in the cockpit for nearly 12 hours.
It's not exactly the most comfortable place to be for 12 hours.
It's a pretty small craft.
So when you're on alert and you're sitting in the cockpit, you're not out.
Well, no.
Is that where that other 5 hours comes
We
in?
go out there, we prepare the jets, we make sure they're ready to go, and then we're normally on a half-hour or hour alert period so that we get the word, put on our gear, go out there, crank, and go. As long as we're airborne within a half an hour or an hour.
In the case of yesterday, though, the tasking kept coming right at one after another, so we never actually
Yeah.
got out of the jets except for the brief period at the FOL, and just jumped right back in.
Is one of you, and pardon me if my terminology is wrong, is one of you the flight leader here and the other, how does it work?
Yeah, I was designated the flight lead. In our case, we're 2 pretty experienced guys. We know what's going to be doing, and Carl's a flight lead in his own right, except that in our situation, they put me out front.
What would be the correct description of what you did?
Wingman.
Wingman, okay.
And having fun.
Oh, and having fun, certainly.
If you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong.
Anything about the airplane?
Outstanding. It's a darn good airplane. We've had a lot of our buddies take a lot of hits, and it's brought them back into friendly territory.
I didn't ask you. You said you'd been shot at. Have you been hit?
Personally, no.
Carl, when
We've
you
been hit once, just a few minor hits in the flap.
when you were getting that AAA yesterday, did any of that hit?
No hits. No, we had no hits taken whatsoever yesterday.
Do you sense that the situation is improving from your perspective, that they're getting to be more targets and that they're getting easier to hit?
I'd say yes. The situation is improving just because we're taking territory. The ground commanders are occupying more and more territory, which makes it better for us because that means we're over friendly territory more often. We've got options to go in case we do get hit and bail out. And they're flushing out the enemy. They're forcing them on the move. And if they come out, we're killing them, or the friendly tanks are killing them.
If you've been following all the stuff about, it's this peace plan and that peace plan and all that sort of stuff, I mean, does that affect you at all?
Negative. We've got one job. That job's to go out and kill the enemy. And that's what we do.
But we were I think the Marines especially were pretty impressed with the aircraft and the job we did because they're not used to working some of the fast movers who can't carry near the ordnance and can't stay on station there as long as we can. And they kept asking us. I guess they couldn't believe we still had anything left to shoot. And after we shot the missiles and then kept coming back in, moving around a bit, and kept shooting more tanks with the gun, and they kept blowing up. And so they were quite impressed with the aircraft, I think.
Yeah, I asked you what the Maverick looked like when it hit. How about the cannon when it hits?
It's not quite as big of a boom. Usually you'll just see the flashes from the armor-piercing, it's the depleted uranium rounds. You'll see the metal from the tank turret or wherever it hits just kind of splash up in kind of a molten spray, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And then usually there's a little bit of a delay. If it does light off, it's a little bit tougher to get them to burn with the gun, but if you hit them with enough rounds, usually 10, 15 seconds, sometimes as long as a minute later, you'll see it cook off and the ammunition will start blowing up, and it'll of course start burning after that.
Still impressive.
Very impressive.
Of all the weapons you've been using, which of them do you like best?
The gun.
Oh, really?
The gun, I think it dates all the way back to the beginning of air power in World War I. And there's nothing like it. Nothing like going through, rolling down the chute, seeing the bullets come out and hammering the target. And, it takes a little bit of skill. You feel the jet rumble under your seat. You see the bullets hit the tank or whatever you're shooting at and just chew it up. It's the best thing going.
Of course, you're in closer when you're using the gun, too.
A little bit, yeah.
We've been quite impressed, though, because the deliveries we've been using quite high altitude and high angle, and even then, I agree with Fish, there's just nothing like the gun we have, and even from the deliveries we've been using, generally we pull off before we even see the bullets hit, and still the energy of them just choose the targets to pieces.
When you're firing the 30 millimeter, is the tracer an unbroken stream?
No tracer.
No tracer.
The bullets are so fast, basically, that you can't correct. The gun rate of fire is so fast, you can't really correct off of your bullets. You just have to take your best. That's why Fish is talking about the skill. You just have to take your best estimate, and we have no cosmic electronics like any of the fast movers. It's strictly Kentucky windage on that, and you just take your best estimate of where you think they're going to hit with the winds, and the winds are quite strong out here, and a lot of times it's a big challenge, and you just take your best guess, fire off your burst, and wait to see if they hit, and usually the wingman will tell you, or whoever's cover at the time will tell you what the results were, if they hit or not.
Yeah. Any reward for you guys for knocking down so many tanks in one day?
Only reward, well, the main reward is you know you're helping out the Army, and you know you're bringing the war to a quicker end, and that's.
And we got a bunch of backslaps when we got back, which was great, because we didn't even expect any of that. And all the crew chiefs came around, and where we have a tally board where they get to chalk up how many they have on each one of their jets, and they were all pretty happy with that.
Big reward for me is just seeing those things blow up too, because there's just nothing like it. It's the biggest 4th of July show you've ever seen, and to see those tanks just boom, and more stuff just keeps spewing out of them, and the shells flying on the ground, and they just become white hot. And
after a while.
Yeah,
what we found a lot.
It's wonderful.
When we were hitting them in revetments, a lot of times you'd figure you might be hitting a dead one because sometimes they wouldn't blow up. But we can obviously tell now that from yesterday, if it's an operational tank that's ready to go against the Army, they're full of fuel, they've got the ammo in them, and if you hit them, they blow up.
No question about killing.
No question.
No question, it's dead.
How long have you guys been flying?
In the Air Force?
Yeah.
Since 1986.
I think I'm just about, I've got a little bit less time than Fish. I think we're just about equal in hours.
I've been flying the A-10 for 3 years.
How many hours?
Geez, I've probably about
Ballpark.
750 hours.
I'm about the same.
That's in the A-10. How much is pilots?
I've got a little over 1,000 hours.
About 1,100, I think.
And all the training you've done, I mean, is it happening the way it's supposed to? I mean, everything you learned?
Yes. And I was really amazed the first day of the CAS war. We went out there expecting communications and coordination to be somewhat, just non-existent or at least degraded. And man alive, it just worked great. We had clear comm. We were in touch with ground facts. They're giving us good briefings for target areas. We're going in, finding the targets and killing them. We're giving good battle damage assessment coming out of the target. It worked good, I thought.
But
if your question is if the training's paying off, yeah, it sure is.
And it really helped us a lot. We've been here over 6 months now, and when we first got here, we didn't have a clue how to fight we had a clue, obviously, but we didn't know the exact techniques, what were best to work in the desert. And by the time the war rolled around and now the CAS war, we decided on what we thought was going to be the best course of action, and it's worked beautiful. We haven't had any hitches.